My name's Joe Nestor. I'm from Wilmington, Delaware, and this is my story. My parents divorced when I was 6 years old, and my dad took me to live with my grandparents. I'm not gonna lie, I had a good childhood. I was well liked by everybody in the neighborhood, got along with everybody, never got into any trouble. I didn't party, had the same group of friends all the way through school. It wasn't until after I graduated that things started to go downhill. I joined a band, started performing at different venues all over the place every weekend, and I'll never forget the night that changed my life forever. It was a Friday, it was February 2002. I just got done performing a show in Pennsylvania. I was loading up the equipment and my friends offered me crack cocaine. Now keep in mind, at this time, I had only smoked weed about 5 times my entire life. I didn't really drink. Like I said, I was a good kid. So I had all these thoughts racing through my mind, of homeless people, people begging for change, people missing their teeth, these drug addicts, but these were my best friends. My best friends that I grew up with. They had the car, they had the house, they had the family, and they had jobs, they had everything. So, I started asking myself, is it really that bad? And that's when they said, you only have to try it once, and if you don't like it, you don't have to try it again. So I tried it, and I immediately became addicted. Within 3 months, not only was I smoking crack every day, I had progressed to shooting heroin. And, things got really bad. I lost my job. I'm pretty sure that, my grandparents and my family, started having questions about what was going on. But like I said, I come from a close-knit family, a very loving family. And I started having thoughts of, stealing from them. And once I started having those thoughts, I made the decision to run away from home. I was 19 years old. I didn't want to put them through the pain that I knew I was going to, because I didn't want to stop getting high. So I packed a book bag and I ran away in the middle of the night. I remember walking across the city down to the church that I used to go to as a kid, and same church that my dad went to as a kid, and my grandfather. There's a hallway on the side of the church that kind of sheltered you from the weather. I don't know why I went there. I think maybe it was my way of being close to God still, hoping that he might pull me out. I told myself, I remember that night, I told myself that it was only going to be for the summer. I was only going to get high for the summer, and it was just going to be this crazy experience. And then afterwards, I was going to enroll into college and get my life back together. That summer lasted 10 years. My friends eventually became homeless with me. And as our addictions progressed, we did everything and anything for drugs, whether it be robbing, stealing, shoplifting, selling ourselves, whatever it took. And we did that for years. I lost both my grandparents in 2007, just months apart from one another. And that hit me pretty hard. These are 2 people that never gave up hope on me. They never stopped believing in me. They always thought that I was going to make something of myself. They thought that I was going to become this musician that impacted the world, And they passed away while I was in my active addiction. I wasn't even allowed to go to their funerals because my family didn't want me there. My friends decided to get clean. I think it was 2008. And I I was left all alone. Still homeless, still sleeping on cardboard boxes underneath bridges, still eating out of dumpsters. And I continued to do that for years. I remember it was 2012. I was at like the lowest point of my addiction. You know, things got so bad. And I got a call out of the blue. And it was my best friend that I hadn't talked to in years. And all I remember him saying was that, like, I know what you're going through. You know, I know what it's like, you know, having everyone and everything remind you of getting high up there. And I'm here to tell you that there is another way. And if you're willing, I'll pay for your train ticket. We'll get you down to South Florida, and I'll get you into treatment. And I was so broken and hopeless at that time. I was 130 pounds, soaking wet. All my teeth were knocked out from either robbing drug dealers or other incidents gone wrong. You know, I had became that person that I envisioned when I took that first hit of crack over 10 years ago. So a couple of days later, I found myself on a 26-hour train ride down to South Florida with nothing but the clothes on my back. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that something needed to change. You know, because my way wasn't working. I got into treatment. My roommate just so happened to have an acoustic guitar. Now mind you, I hadn't played guitar in over 10 years, you know. But I picked it up, started messing around with it again, and started writing some songs. And you know, it wasn't like it was before when I was 19 years old and I was writing songs to try to be this rock star and become popular and famous. You know, I was writing songs now about my life. You know, I was writing songs to deal with my emotions and the fears of wanting to go back out and get high. You know, it was therapeutic for me. And I continued to do that. I eventually graduated treatment and went to an all-guys halfway house in South Florida. And I started going to meetings. I got a sponsor. I started working steps. And my life started to get better, you know. I didn't want to admit it at first. I fought it. You know, I didn't believe some words in a book or some steps on a wall were going to save me from my hopeless state of mind and body. I thought that I was too far gone. You know, but I did it anyways because there was no other option for me. For me, it was life or death. And I wanted to live. So I continued to do these things, all while writing music. And, you know, it's funny, whenever I would write songs, I would pour so much emotion into it. And the guys at the halfway house would always tell me, man, you need to go down to a coffee shop, or you need to go perform here or perform there and let people hear it. And I was so scared to do that, you know. I didn't want to perform in front of anybody. You know, I was too scared of the rejection. You know, what if they didn't like it? These weren't songs, just normal songs. These were songs about my life, my own personal experiences. And if they rejected them, it would be like they're rejecting my life, and I don't think I could handle that. But I persevered. I pushed through the fear, and I started performing at this coffee shop. People loved it. You know, I started performing there every week, and the crowds just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I eventually created some social media accounts, and I don't even think it was a month later that I was signed to a record label. And before I knew it, I was touring all over the country. You know, I was being interviewed every state, different news stations. I was being put in newspaper articles, magazines. I had no idea that, so many people would relate to how I was feeling. It's crazy, looking back in hindsight. It kind of blew up really quick for me. And it all stems from going to meetings, getting a sponsor, working the steps, and I have a pretty amazing life today. I met a girl, and now we have an amazing family, 3 children. I get to do what I love. I get to travel all over the country doing what I love. And like I said, looking back, it's cool to see all the pieces of the puzzle come together. Seeing God in all of it. Because I don't think it was a coincidence that the same person who introduced me to drugs, my childhood friend that I grew up with, would end up 10 years later being the same person that got me out of it and got me into treatment, all the way down in Florida. We're still friends to this day, over 1,300 miles away from where it first started, over 20 years ago. It's not a coincidence that when I did get into treatment, they just so happened to put me in a room with another acoustic musician, and now that musician, my buddy Logan, is traveling, doing his thing, sharing his story through music. I've had him open up for me at numerous shows all over the country. We inspired each other, and now we're inspiring, millions of other people. I don't think that's coincidence. Right before I got clean, I was running with somebody else, my buddy Frank. We were homeless together, getting high, and got locked up together, and he ended up going to Baltimore for years, in prison, and got out, and now he's clean, and he's doing music, and he's spreading a message of hope and inspiration through his music, and we're actually going on a nationwide tour in October. I don't think that's coincidence. I don't think it's coincidence that even, you, Gambo, we were in detox in Delaware, over 10 years ago together. Smoking cigarettes and scrubs. But now, here it is, 2019, and we're down in South Florida, and we both have lives beyond our wildest dreams. I don't know what you would call it. I just think that, God places certain things and certain people in our lives for very specific reasons. And we may not understand it right then and there, but later on down the road, all the pieces of the puzzle start coming together, and then eventually you get to see the masterpiece that God has prepared for you. Recovery didn't just give me my life back. Recovery gave me the opportunity to create a new one beyond my wildest dreams.